Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another session on Python programming. In the last session, which was an introductory session, we had looked at reason wise to why one should learn Python. The major reason that we identified is the popularity of the language. We also understood what is programming languages, what are the various versions of Python, which version of Python we are going to learn, and then we had started with concept of features of Python. So I'll start today with this. Continue from the features of Python. Before that, I request all of you to turn your cameras while we start with the discussion. So don't keep your cameras off. If you turn on your camera, that means you are more attentive. Otherwise, in online sessions, it's very obvious, it's very common. Yes, others who do not have problem, turn on your cameras. Sanjay, Shantanu, Sunita. Okay, it's surprising. The power cut is everywhere. Even at my place, there is a power cut. So I was also struggling to turn it on, put the things all right. And looks like Kaustubh Sanjay also has a power cut. Is it Pan India? I don't know. Pan Maharashtra? I don't know. Okay, so let's begin with the session. We'll just do a quick recap about. Am I audible? Or shall I increase the volume?
Audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Clear?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
I'm just increasing the gain slightly. Did it make any difference? Is there any difference in the audio quality? अरे कुछ तो बोलो audible है
No,
नहीं है
little bit, sir.
Pardon?
Little bit.
Little bit what? Poor है अच्छा है क्या है?
अच्छा.
Okay, let's continue. So we'll jump on to features once again. The features that we discussed last time is it's an interpreted language. We did draw a comparison between compiled language like C++ and Python. In compiled language, entire code needs to be translated into the machine format before it gets executed. In interpreted language, one instruction is interpreted, that means compiled, and then it is executed. Then second instruction is compiled, and then it is executed, and so on. So Python is an interpreted language. So you do not have to wait for the entire code to be compiled for you to see the result. If there are no errors in your code, probably it will just go ahead executing line by line. And plus there is no linking that is necessary. And it allows you to break your program into several modules, and creation of modules over here is far more simpler than creating header files in C++ or C language or modules in Java. Here it's quite simple. In Python, every file is a module. So if I just create a py file, py is .py, extension is .py, and I can just club together various functions into it, that becomes my module. So no special efforts have to be taken to create a module. When we discuss packages and modules, you'll understand how simple is this particular concept. By clubbing them related resources together, we create a kind of modular library which can be reused in multiple applications. So it increases the reusability of an application by providing us a feature or to create these modules. And it supports dynamic typing. Many languages are strictly typed like C. If I create a variable to store integers, I can store only integer into it. I cannot store my name into it. If I create a variable to store my name, that is string, then I can store only string. I cannot store my age into it. That's not Python. In Python, the nature of the variable changes, or the nature of the variable changes depending on what value have you assigned to that variable. Moment you assign a value to the variable, the nature of the variable will change. So that's dynamic typing. Plus, you do not have to define variable beforehand. Variable spring into existence, comes into existence the moment you assign value to it. So these are the points that we discussed last time. Python enables programs to be written compactly and readably. Now, this is why big reason why Python is so very popular. Less lines, more work. That means with less lines of code, you can achieve more. And with lesser number of lines, maintenance also becomes easier. Code is actually compact and it's more English-like, so it is also more readable. Programs written in C, Python are typically much shorter than equivalent C, C++ or Java program for several reasons. First, there are several high-level data types which are available. So if I have to create a list in C, I'll have to write at least 150 lines code. Here there is a list available on one line itself. So point is the number of lines of code that you write to fulfill a requirement of some application that is significantly lower in Python as compared to any other language. Statement grouping is done by indentation instead of opening and closing braces. If you come from the world of C, C++, or Java, if I have to begin with a module, the first thing that I have to do, I have to put the pair of braces. So this pair of braces will tell us this is the place where the module begins, and then another pair of braces will tell us where that module gets ended. So I'll just show you a glimpse about a C or C++ program or a Java program. And as the size of the program goes on increasing, it really becomes quite tedious to keep a track as to where that particular function begin or code block begin and where that code block ends. In Python, it's visual. That means you just put a tab and you indent the code. That's good enough. You don't really have to worry about specifying where that code block begin and where that code block end and so on. If you look at this particular example over here, it's a C++ code. Same story will be in C and in Java as well. So let me just randomly open some file. Look at that. If I had to specify this is my while loop, so I specify that while loop with this opening braces and with this closing braces. And all statements are again indented for good practice. But then I have to specify the while loop starts over here, ends over here. If I have for loop, I have to specify it starts over here and ends over here. So we always, it's a function which starts over here and ends over here. Within the function, there is a for loop, it starts over here and ends over here. So we have to use this pair of braces and look, as the nesting goes on increasing. So ये for loop यहाँ start हो रहा है और यहाँ खत्म हो रहा है, line number 72 पे खत्म हो रहा है. Then the while loop which starts on line number 58 ends on line number 71. And the do while loop which starts on line number 49 ends over here. और उसके अंदर if है that starts over here, ends over here. So it's actually very tedious to actually, if you are not very careful, we get lost in those pair of braces. That you don't have to do when it comes to Python. You just have to indent your code. That means specific number of spaces or tabs you leave from the margin, and that's good enough. So high-level data structure allows you to express complex operations in single statements. That's like list and set and map or dictionaries are ready-made available. You don't have to create those data structures. Statement grouping is done by indentation instead of beginning and ending braces, brackets. No variables, argument declarations are necessary. Even in logic, we first went ahead declaring an arg variable, and then we use a variable. Python says no. You need a variable, just start using it. The moment you use a variable, it will automatically get created. You do not have to separately define or create a variable to use that variable. Just use it, the variable has been created. So that's reduces the lines of code that you write. So these are some of the advantages of going in for Python as a language. So we discussed few yesterday and few today. Most important thing is you have to write less to get more work done. And plus, a representation of the logic is also quite simple by using Python as a language. High-level data structures are available. There, I tell people who are Python developers, challenge for you is to not to implement a data structure. Challenge for you is to use the right data structure at the right place. Because all data structures that you commonly require are freely available on the shelf. You just have to pick the right one to get your work done. And plus, no variable declaration necessary. You can just start using a variable moment you need it. So that makes Python very, very interesting. But there is a downside of Python. So what's the downside? What's the complaint regarding Python? If somebody has to complain about Python, the first and the most important thing is the execution speed. Now, if I compare a C, C++ program with a Python program, they are not comparable at all. C, C++ program are directly mapped to the underlying hardware. If your machine is 64-bit machine, it will adopt for a 62-bit machine. If it's a 32-bit machine, it will adopt for a 30-bit machine. So it is more near, or it is more mapped to the underlying hardware. That's not the case in Python. So a fully compiled program like C, C++ will work very, very fast as compared to Python. Now, very fast means literally very fast. It could be hundreds of times faster than Python program that a C or C++ program will work. But what is happening today? Today, machines are very fast. Say Rahul writes a program in C and Harsh writes a program in Python. Rahul's program takes 10 nanoseconds and Harsh's program takes 100 nanoseconds, 10 times slower. But nanosecond 10 times slower, 100 nanoseconds, it doesn't make a difference for us. So let's say the difference is much higher. Rahul's program takes 1 minute to run. Harsh's program takes 5 minutes to run. Now there is a substantial increase in the amount of time that is being taken. But then at the end of the day, Rahul का program fast 5 minutes में run करके भी कोई फायदा नहीं है. Because I'll just explain you the reason why I should not bother too much about this speed unless you are developing some scientific application, some military applications. Unless you're not doing those kind of application development, medical application. Unless you're not designing those kind of application, you should not really be bothered about this speed or that it takes. Let me tell you why. Harsh writes a program in Python, Rahul writes a program in C++. And both write a program for printing a bill for a customer. And when the customer enters the data, the processing can happen very fast in a C program. Python program will take more time. But the bottleneck is the performance is not just dependent upon how fast the program works. The operator who's using the program, he takes that item, he takes the scanner, he scans that particular price for that item. That's anyway going to hamper the performance. After scanning, Rahul ka program, C program run very fast. It immediately do the calculation. But for the total bill to be created, that attendant on the at the store have to pick up one item after another, scan. So a scanning will be the bottleneck. The amount of time that is going to take scan will be the same. And in between first scan and the second scan, the Python program can also do the calculation and Rahul ka C program can also do the calculation. Chalo, scanning ho gaya. आप कहोगे print करना है अभी bill. But the printer may not work as fast as possible. Printer का अपना खुद का speed है. Rahul ka program finished work within 1 nanosecond, 10 nanoseconds. Harsh program took 500 nanoseconds. But printer तो अपना ही काम time लेने वाला है ना. So while the time Harsh का slow program is partially being printed, partial calculation पीछे आते रहेगा. So it is not just how fast the program works, it's also the surrounding environment that creates a bottleneck for the overall performance of the application. So in commercial application, not every time the slowness of Python may not have much impact unless you're developing application for military, where time is crucial, space research, medical. There you cannot, that few milliseconds can also be a matter of life and death. Okay, because suppose Pakistan fires a missile and you have to find an anti-missile from India, it has to calculate the trajectory. वो पाकिस्तान का मिसाइल कौन से हाइट से कहाँ से कौन से पाथ फॉलो करके कौन से सिटी पे आ रहा है और फिर अप्रोप्रिएटली अपने यहाँ से एंटी मिसाइल जाके उसको ब्लास्ट करना चाहिए. वहां अगर 2 मिनट के बाद आपने कैलकुलेट कर लिया, बाय दैट टाइम दैट मिसाइल विल लैंड इन इंडिया. So there the time is very critical. There probably I will not use Python. But in other commercial application, the time is not that critical and there are other bottlenecks which are there. Some आपको सर मैं कुछ प्रिंट भी नहीं करने वाला हूँ. अरे मैं हार्ड डिस्क पे तो लिखोगे and it takes time to write to the hard disk. Your processor may do the calculation very fast. Even if you have to save that data onto the hard disk is very slow as compared to your processor. So the time that Python takes more to do the calculations or to do the processing is actually compensated by the lag that is there with peripheral devices. So your C++ program may be working very fast, but the total amount of time that may be required for a C program and a Python program may at the end come out to be the same. Why? Because there are other factors, external devices, which are not working as fast as C code, as slow as Python code. They take their own sweet time. And because of those bottlenecks, the time, that constraint that Python has is really not that very serious, unless I'd said you're developing applications which are critical in terms of time. Okay, I again tell you which are those medical operations and other things. There is a probe that the doctor has sent in your body, and not your body, somebody's body, some patient's body. And there is a camera at the end, and it's watching, giving the doctor the glimpse about what is there internally. And that image has to be immediately replicated and shown on the screen. Otherwise, the doctor will take a cut, and the image will be shown him later. अरे ये यहाँ नहीं जाना था, ये और कहीं आगे आ गया probe, cut कहीं आगे हो गया, नहीं चलेगा अंदर. So that has to be real time. So when real time operations have to be done, Python may not be the best choice. When real time operations have to be done, then Python may not be the best choice. But other cases, Python is a very good thing. So these were some of the advantage and disadvantage, the major disadvantage we have discussed, that is speed. So these were advantage and disadvantage of Python. Any questions so far before we proceed further? Any questions, anybody? Have you understood? If you understood, give a tick mark. If there is any query, please ask. Feedback चाहिए मुझे जल्दी से.
No, sir.
Ashfaq, Harsh, Piyusha.
Okay, sir.
नहीं, I love to see that green tick. अगर आपको समझ में आ गया तो टिक करो. रिएक्शन देखो, जूम में नीचे रिएक्शन है, तो वहां से रिएक्शन देना है आपको. पीयूषा, श्वेता, श्वेता यादव,
Yes.
are you there?
Understood.
श्वेता, रिएक्शन आपको समझ में आ गया, नहीं आया है? श्वेता, are you there? ये ऐसा होता है, वीडियो ऑफ करोगे ना तो सो गए या क्या कर रहे पता नहीं चलेगा. श्वेता, are you there? If you don't respond, I'll have to remove you from the meeting. Shweta, either respond or leave. Simple. Okay. If it takes so long, it raises doubt about whether you are listening to what we are discussing. Okay. Now, let's talk about Python slightly before we continue with our discussion even further. We will understand how Python program runs, because there are a lot of Python developers who use Python without having any understanding as to how the Python program is actually running. But to do that, before that, I'll introduce you to the concept of an interactive shell that Python provides us. So let's understand what is this interactive shell that is being provided. Run code in the interactive shell. Now this option is available to you the moment you install Python on a machine. How to install Python? I'll just demonstrate to you. But then once you install the Python, this interactive shell is available. So Python is an interpreted language. We have discussed it. And simple Python expressions and statements can run in an interactive programming environment called as shell. Well, we had done Linux programming also, shell script. So likewise, over here in Python also, you can do some programming on the Python shell. I'll just show you that shell, how it is. The easiest way to open Python shell is to launch an IDLE. Now, IDLE is an integrated development environment that is made available to you moment you install Python. आपने Python install कर लिया, उसके साथ आपके पास ये IDLE भी आ जाएगा. So I'll just show you this IDLE also, which will come every time you install Python. It is an integrated program development environment. IDLE, integrated development environment है. I, integrated, DL, development, E for environment. ये अपने पास integrated development environment है that comes with Python installation. So moment you install Python, this is made available for you directly. So this shell contains an opening message followed by special like this symbol called as shell prompt. So let's check it out. ऐसा होता है क्या? I'll first start with Linux, and within Linux, I'll open up Python shell. Instead of Windows, I start off with Linux. So I'm on Ubuntu. Let's see what happens. Is the Ubuntu shell visible right now?
Yes.
Okay, I have cleared the screen and I start off with Python. If I plan to start Python in Linux-like environment, I have to specify, say Python 3, ऐसे बताना होगा. तो moment ऐसे Python 3, यहाँ कुछ तो message आ गया, Python 3.10, November 14, 2022. अरे but 3.11 आ चुका है अभी, correct? So we need to see whether in Linux Python का updated version is available or not. So we can update also. So ये 3.10.6 version है. Okay, that's quite latest. But now, can you see this symbol? Okay, this symbol is nothing but the shell prompt that is there. Prompt is a place where we can fire your commands. So if I have to greet all of you, so I say print, welcome to the world of Python is what I said. Oh, it says unterminated string. Okay, I start with single quotes. Let me start with single quotes. Here it says welcome to the world of Python. So we started with Python. It displayed some information for us. And after that, we are given a statement saying welcome to the world of Python. Whatever we have typed that has got displayed. I could use this particular thing in a different ways. If I had to define a function here, that is also possible. So all the Python operations can be done over here. Suppose if I say some variable var is equal to 67 plus 78, and if I now print the value of var, it says 145. So any Python expression could have been written. I wrote a print expression, then I'm writing an arithmetic expression. Everything is okay. The variable got created. Earlier there was no such variable, but now the variable has got created. Its value is 145. That's 67 plus 78 result and so on. The cursor at the shell point wait for you to enter Python command. So if I'm here, it will wait for me to enter the Python command, and I can type any Python command over here. If I wanted to know your age, so I could prompt the user to input the age, and if the user is prompted to do that, we can accept the data. So you could say print, enter your age. So we will prompt the user. Then I can accept the age. So all those things can be done, but for accepting, there will be another command that we'll be using. So any Python command that we are aware of, we can give over here. Suppose if I say somewhere is equal to, I have to accept some value. So I just say input. So it will wait for me to give some input. So I give an input like Leela. अब देखते हैं where में क्या है. So if I see the content of where, it's Leela. So any Python command can be given over here, and you can see the result. Note that you can immediately type help. Oh, that's something which is most helpful. If you forget some command, you can just type help. It says okay. Help के आगे parenthesis डालो. So I do that. It says okay help. Now what help you would like to have? You need to know what are the Python keywords. That means commands. Let's say key word. So it is telling you keyword from grammar python.gram. ये आपको इसकी information देगा. What is the keyword? This file automatically gets generated. Please don't muck it up. Updated file cd, whatever it is. Module reference keyword name is trying to give us some information about it. So it's telling us alternately you can do this. Is it a keyword? It's giving us some information. So there is a package called as keyword.py. It's telling us about the keyword.py package. Okay. So we were interested in knowing that print command. Suppose we're interested in knowing about that print command. So how do I go ahead with that print command? Okay. So now that we have seen this, I come out and I say print. So it says print and it's giving us help of that print command. It says, okay, you can pass some values, then some file, then some separator, then some end, then some flush. So all these options which are available, optional keyword arguments which are there. So it's telling us or giving information on all those arguments. I use one more command called as input. So let's see about that one more command input that we have just now seen. Okay. So input. So I just say input. So it says, okay, reads the string from standard input. Training line is stripped. So it's meant for reading strings. Huh? If the var hits UF, that means control D, yeah, control Z return, it raises an error. On Unix system, the read line is used if it is available and so on. The point is, it's giving us information about this particular command. It tells you, okay, you can also pass a prompt over here if you want to. So it is giving us information about those things. And if I have to come out of it, I was just pressing Q. To come out of it, I was just pressing Q. If I type topics over here, I misspelled it. Topics, it will tell you all the topics in Python that we'll probably learn. Say there is one topic like methods that you want to know. So I just say methods. So it's telling us about, it will tell us about topic, sorry. Help. What happened? I just say method. I say method method. Java. Topics here are listed already. Enter any topic name to get help. So I just say topics topics. And now here I'll say looping. So I say looping. Looping. It's telling us about looping. Look at that. Both of looping come topics. You want to know about numbers. So I just type numbers. It's telling about numeric literals in Python. Kya available hai? Float hai, integer hai, complex hai, types hai, and so on. And if you're done with, press Q. And I say, I want to know more about the classes. It's telling us about the classes and so on. So there is immediate help which is available. You don't have to do Google search or something. There's immediate help which is available. And my favorite topic is Unicode. I can just type Unicode. code, it's telling us about all the Unicode things which are there. I say Q, I come out. I say, so we have come out of it and we are out. Okay, so we are out of we are again back on the shell, the command prompt, Python prompt from the help. If I again want to go for help, I'll just type help, open bracket, close bracket. Oh, that's help, small case, open bracket, close bracket. Your help starts. I want to come out of it, I'll just try exit. EXIT. So it's telling us about a command called as exit. Okay. So if I say QUIT, it says okay, quit and open bracket, close bracket. That takes you out of that particular shell. So exit कहने पर आप बाहर आए, quit कहने पर it's saying okay, quit, open bracket, close bracket, it will stop your Python interpreter and so on. So this help was something which was very, very interesting. And to quit the Python shell, you can either press Control D, Control Z combination, or you can type exit. And that's precisely what we did. Oh, we said quit. And let's try and say exit. So we are in the Python prompt, and I now say exit. So that's also possible. We have come out. I start with Python 3 once again, and I say QUIT. Okay, that's also possible. So you can say quit, you can say exit. Both of them will get you out of Python. So input and output are distinguished by presence and absence of the prompt and this triple dot. So let me explain you this. Suppose if I start with Python 3. So here, when you see this particular prompt, that's the place where you fire a command. Okay. Presence and absence of this and this. Okay, so आप यहाँ input दोगे. Output कैसे आएगा? Let's have a look at it. If I say 3 plus 5, इसका आंसर यहाँ 8 आ गया, but before 8 there is neither this symbol, neither there are this triple dot. फिर आपको ये triple dot कब आएगा? Suppose I'm describing something which is more complex, like a function. So if I say def say hello, and I'm going to pass a name, तो यहाँ देखो triple dot आ गया अभी. That means my function still continues from here, and then I'm going to say print. Don't worry about what is it doing. ऐसा function हमने define किया. तो यहाँ सारा input चल रहा था, 3 line input थे. Now if I'm going to call this function, say hello, and I say RAHUL is what I do. तो यहाँ 3 angular brackets है at the beginning, यानी मेरा input है. That means I'm giving some input. Output जाएगा वहाँ, ऐसा कुछ नहीं आएगा. Watch it. Output राहुल आपका directly आ गया. और I should say hello राहुल ना, ऐसा कुछ करना है आपको. तो suppose ये था, इसके आगे था आपका print name, इसके आगे मैं लिख देता हूँ hello name. अब राहुल को विश करके देते हेलो राहुल, क्या थे. तो पॉइंट क्या था? These angular brackets and these dots means you are giving some input, some command you are executing. And जहाँ ये नहीं रहेगा, either this नहीं रहेगा या ये prompt नहीं रहेगा, that means that's an output for us. यानी यहाँ output आ रहा है. Just understand this. Don't worry about the functions. We'll learn later. Understand on presence and absence of those 3 dots or 3 greater than signs. You must time everything after the prompt when the prompt appears. So here is where you'll type whatever you would like to have. Lines that do not begin with the prompt are output for the interpreter. So look at this. Hello Rahul that has got printed is an output for the interpreter. And all these are input for the interpreter. All these lines are input for the interpreter. Okay, so that was about how Python appears. Now, what is happening in the background is what I'll discuss next. Till here, if anybody has a query, please ask. Have you all understood? Your quick feedback, yes, no? Ashfaq, Shantanu, Shweta,
हाँ सर. हेलो.
टिक करो. रिएक्शन दो, टिक करो. अगर समझ में आ गया तो टिक करो. रिएक्शन चाहिए, नीचे रिएक्शन.
यस सर.
अशफाक, श्वेता,
Yes, sir.
रिएक्शन भी दो, टिक करो. श्वेता, श्वेता, आपको समझ में आया है नहीं आया है? Shweta, I have to call out your name every time. That's not good. Okay, that's a good choice that she has made. Shweta, आपको respond करना है. Otherwise, no, Monica, don't call her. She either has to respond on her own. Shweta, this is the last time when I'll call your name 5 times and 4 times. I doubt whether you are attentive or not. क्या प्रॉब्लम है आपको? आप रिस्पॉन्ड क्यों नहीं कर रहे? नहीं समझ में आया तो ना बोलो. आई एम देयर टू एक्सप्लेन यू अगेन. क्या डाउट है श्वेता? लेट मी नो. क्या प्रॉब्लम है? आप क्यों नहीं रिस्पॉन्ड करते हो? श्वेता, मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ. शी हैज अ नेटवर्क इशू. ठीक है, देखते हैं. आज बिलीव करता हूँ नेटवर्क इशू. रोज तो नेटवर्क इशू नहीं रहेगा. देखते हैं कल. ओके, तो लेट्स कंटिन्यू विद आवर डिस्कशन. नाउ वी विल एक्चुअली डाइव डीप. ये इंट्रोडक्शन है, बट सीरियस डिस्कशन रहेगा अभी. हाउ डज पाइथन प्रोग्राम एक्चुअली रन? So that's what we are going to discuss next. And that's something which is very important because a lot of people do not even understand, even after writing codes in Python for several years, they don't even have an understanding as to what is happening in the background. You as my student, I do not want you to blindly write a code without even understanding what is happening. Okay, so let's jump on to understanding how Python program really works. So we have been saying there's an interpreter. I'll come back to this particular topic in more detail sometimes later. Okay, but here I'll give you a very good understanding as to what is happening when we talk about running a Python program. And that will clear your understanding, give you a better understanding about what that interpreter is and other things out there. So let's jump on to understanding how Python program runs. Anybody amongst you has worked with any other language? Yes, आप में से किसी ने कोई और प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज किया है तो बताइए मुझे. तो शेयर करो जल्दी से.
Hi sir, Shantanu here. Sir, I have written few scripts on Shell.
प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज है ना?
Okay. No, not it.
कौन से लैंग्वेज में लिखे? ओएल में लिखे हैं, पाइथन में लिखे हैं, कौन से लैंग्वेज में लिखे? या यूनिक्स बैश स्क्रिप्ट लिखा है?
Yes.
बैश स्क्रिप्ट लिखा है. मैं लैंग्वेज की बात कर रहा हूँ, प्रॉपर फुल फ्लेज लैंग्वेज. स्क्रिप्टिंग इज पार्शियल बट फुल फ्लेज लैंग्वेज इज.
No sir.
नहीं?
No.
Okay. Because those will work quite similar to what I'm going to discuss, which अलग. Anybody has worked in Java, C, C++? हर्ष कौन सा लैंग्वेज यूज किया है? I cannot hear you, Harsh. Could anybody hear what Harsh said? कौन सा लैंग्वेज यूज किया हर्ष आपने?
He is on mute. So he is
हर्ष
on
अनम्यूट करो पहले अपने आप को. बात कर रहे हैं और म्यूट है यहाँ. वेरी करेक्ट. हर्ष अनम्यूट करके बात करो. हाँ, कौन सा लैंग्वेज यूज किया हर्ष? सी, C++. लाउडर, जरा वॉल्यूम बढ़ाओगे? C, C++ and Java. So how did you run a C program? लाउडर, थोड़ा लाउडली बोलो, मुझे सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है. नहीं, एक आध प्रोग्राम तो आपने रन किया होगा ना पूरे कोर्स में. तो कैसे रन किया? ओके, कंपाइल करके रन किया. So every time you want to run, you used to compile? Okay, that's a wrong practice actually. Okay, let's try and understand what is the difference. How does it really work? So how does Python program work? Whether, yes, please. Anybody has to say something? Whether you run
Every
Python,
time,
yeah, tell me.
every time you make a change to the code, you need to compile, right?
Every time you need to change your code, then we also have to save it, we also have to compile it, and we have to link it, and we have to run. Agar wo C, C++ ka program. So there's a lot of things that actually goes in between, and that's only I give an overall idea. Actually, there are 5-stage processes that I'll teach you when I tell you C++. So it is not just compile and linking. In between, there are tools like assembler. Yeah, then there is a tool like the -I option. We call this. There is a preprocessor. So there is a lot of things that is happening. You are aware of only two things. Only compiler you normally talk about. There is a compiler. There is a linker. There is a preprocessor. There is an assembler, and all of them have to work one after another to make your AXE file. But once you create an AXE file, then if you are not making changes, then you could run that AXE file directly. You don't have to recompile that particular code. You don't have to recompile that code. So C++ program runs very fast on the target device. I'll come to it later. So if I have a Windows machine and I compile my program, C program for Windows machine, it will run very fast on Windows machine. But if I carry the same program on Linux machine, it will not run because it is very near to the underlying host. So they are platform specific. That means if I compile a C program for Linux, it will run only on Linux. If I compile it for Mac, it will run only on Mac. If I compile it for Windows, it will run only on Windows. That's not the case with Python. Python is platform independent. Whichever OS you may be working with, Kothu is writing a code. On his machine, he has Windows, and Rahul is his client. He has Linux, and Harsh is another client who has Mac. It will still run. दोस्तों का प्रोग्राम सारे मशीन पे काम करेगा, खुद की मशीन पे काम करेगा और उसके दो अलग क्लाइंट्स हैं जिनके पास दो अलग मशीन है वहां भी काम करेगा. हाउ इज दिस मैजिक? लेट्स ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड. एंड अगर आपको इसमें कोई डाउट है तो जरूर पूछेगा, बिकॉज दिस इज अ क्रूशियल एस्पेक्ट अबाउट आवर application development. So let's see how does it work. Whether we run a Python code as a script or interactively in a shell. अब ये क्या matter है Python script or interactively in a shell? What I gave you a demonstration was only running the program in the interactive shell. वही दिखाया. I did not show you how to run a Python code as a script. I haven't shown you that. I'll give a demonstration of that as well. The Python interpreter does a great deal of work to carry out instructions in your program. That means there are two ways to run a Python program. एक आपका script हो या interactive in the shell हो. So we were in the shell. अब मैं एक script run करके दिखाता हूँ आपको directly. So Python code as a script or in interactive shell. I just showed you this interactive shell. I did not show you this how to run a script. So let me first show you how to run a script, and then we'll come back. So let's open up the shell once again. We are here. I'll come out of Python by saying Control D. That's another option. Control D से भी आप बाहर आ सकते हैं. Look, I'm out of Python and I'm on my command prompt. I'm on my command prompt. So I know some Python code I have kept somewhere. Let me see if I have some Python files over here. .py. Oh, there are no such files over here. Probably they are on some other folder. So let me go to that folder. So I'll say here I have a lot of Python programs. Hundreds of Python programs is what I have written. So I list that. Look at that. There are hundreds of Python programs which are there. Out of which I plan to take some such program. Suppose if I want to take a program like, there is one small game that I have written. So let's check for game. So I say GAME star ls GAME star. अगर ऐसा कुछ नहीं है तो मैं कहता हूँ ls ऐसा. No such file or directory. Okay. So let's see while star. So there are so many of while. यहाँ है एक while guess game.py ऐसा एक file है. So let me show you the content of that file. I say cat says while guess game.py. So if you look at this, this is a Python script that I have written. It's a code, 10-15 lines of code is what I have written. It's a Python script. Don't worry about what that script is. There is a Python script that is there. That's more important for us to understand. कि ऐसा कोई तो Python script हमारे पास है. And that file is given a name called as while guess game.py. So I plan to run this program. So how do I run? I say Python 3 while guess game.py. So it says guess an integer. So if I am about to guess an integer, चलो राहुल आप एक guess करो integer.
5. 5.
5 year old. तो आप कहता है नो इट्स लिटिल बिट हायर देन दैट, करोगे जल्दी जल्दी.
15.
15 is higher than that.
25.
25.
50.
50.
75.
अरे मैसेज तो पढ़ो. क्या कह रहा है मैसेज? आपने जो 50 एंटर किया, इट इज सेइंग नो इट्स लिटिल लोअर देन दैट. 75 बोल के कैसे चलेगा?
35.
35 higher than that.
40.
Higher than that.
45. 42.
49.
49.
47.
47. And that's it. The game is over. So we got that particular number. Number was 47. You made some attempts to get that answer, but that was a Python script that we have executed. So this was a script. And if I have to execute the script, I'll just say Python 3 and that name. But that is in Linux. If I was in Windows, then how would I run it? Suppose we are in Windows. So let's go to Windows prompt. We are here in Windows prompt. Let me go to the directory cd / cd Python cd programs. Suppose if I have to start with Python, in Linux we said Python 3 because there is Python 2 also which is available. Whereas in Windows we just say Python. The moment you say Python, the Python will start if it is already installed in Windows. मेरे पास नहीं है शायद in Windows, so it is asking us, okay, get it from the store. यहाँ नहीं है मेरे पास, since I don't have it. The latest कौन सा है? Python 3.11. So let's get it. I'm saying get it. So it's pending, starting download. ऐसा कुछ तो एक शेल आएगा भी आपको काम करने के लिए, इंटरेक्टिव शेल. 1.4 MB of 50 MB downloaded. It's working too slow. So let's stop this. With 1.4 MB of the entire thing. So I'll not take it from the Python store, this Microsoft store. Rather, I'll go to python.org. वहां से download कर लेते हैं. Let's go to python.org. Probably that will work faster. So I go here, python.org, and I go to download. Look at this download. This is Python 11.3. I click on that. It will say downloads में download करो. मैंने कहा download करो, and it is getting downloaded quite faster. हो गया download. So that was a better choice. And then I could install it. So here it is. Let me install it. After you have downloaded it, I'll just double click on this to install. So मैंने इसको double click किया, installation starts. That's because I did not have Python already installed, so I'm installing it now. तो आपका installation भी cover हो जाएगा. So it says install now, include ID, pip, documentation, सब कुछ चाहिए क्या? हाँ, yes, I want everything. So to start installation, it is initializing. It will take hardly any time. We'll wait for this installation to complete. Okay, it's taking some time. So let it take its own sweet time for this installation to complete. There is nothing that we have to do during the installation. But then once it gets installed, then I'll show you how do you run it in Windows. So the Windows may install ho jaye. We'll see later as to how do you run it in Windows. So I'll just keep it pending. And let it get installed in the background. Let it get installed in the background. Meanwhile, we'll just cover up the rest of the patterns. Okay, so I showed you, at least in Linux, I showed you how do you run that particular script. So there are two things. Either you can run it on the command on the interactive shell by typing some commands, or you could go to the you could run it as a script by saying in Windows you'll say Python, in Linux you'll say Python 3 and your script name. Script is nothing but what we call them as programs in other languages. When you create a C++ program, you say myprogram.cpp. In Python, you'll say myprogram.py. So your Python program extension will be .py. And if there is an error in that program, it will stop at the stage where it encounters an error. If a Python expression is well formed, the interpreter then translates into equivalent form of low-level language called as bytecode. Watch this. So every Python code that we write is going to get translated into something called as bytecode. So it's not the code that you and me write that will get executed. Neither the code that you and me write in Python that will also not be sent to the interpreter, means that will not be interpreted. What will actually get executed is the bytecode. Now my question to you is, what is bytecode? Guess Karo, what is bytecode? Yes, everybody, what is a bytecode? Guess. गूगल सर्च करते नहीं बैठना है, जो आपको मालूम है बताइए. Everybody. Yes, Shantanu.
It is converted to 0 and 1.
It is converted to zeros and one. That means bytecode is the forms of zeros and one. Any other answer? That was a nice guess. Bytes मतलब 1 and 0 दिमाग में आ जाता है. Come on, others. कोशिश करो. If you had known it confidently, you would not have been here.
Bytecode is compiled code.
Bytecode is compiled code. Okay, that's another concept. Anywhere else?
Hello, sir.
Huh.
A code which used to run for it is for the machine to understand, set of instructions to machines to understand.
Machine मतलब आपका Linux machine, Windows machine,
Yes.
that machine, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
या आप इंटेल हार्डवेयर कह रहे हैं या मैक हार्डवेयर कह रहे हैं, मींस इंटेल कह रहे हैं, सोलरिस इंटेल कह रहे हैं या फिर मोटोरोला हार्डवेयर कह रहे हैं. आपके लिए मशीन कॉन्सेप्ट, मशीन मतलब क्या है? The operating
Sir,
system,
hardware, sir.
the hardware. Okay, the Intel processor or the Mac processor.
Yes.
Okay, and believe me, friends, all these answers were nowhere near to the actual thing. So let's understand what exactly it is. Okay, bytecode. We all make guesses, not really knowing what it is. Let's not make any guess henceforth.
It is an interpreter that understands
It's a
interpreter language.
it's a
Interpreter language.
it's a interpreter language. But Python ही कोड को interpret करता है ना?
Okay, acha. So it interprets into zeros and one, right?
Okay,
I mean
now-
bytecode.
Okay, that's a guess. So let's try and understand this process very well. If a Python expression is well formed, the interpreter then translates into equivalent form of low-level language called as bytecode. So first glance, it looks like the interpreter is translating the English-like Python code that we have into something called as bytecode, correct? ऐसे लग रहा है ना ये different point से?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
What, sir? Can you repeat, sir?
By reading this point, okay, what we understand is, or what interpretation that we have is, the interpreter takes the English-like code which is in Python language, the syntax and semantics of Python. यहाँ आपने लिखा print, welcome Rahul. So that Python code is taken and converted into bytecode by the interpreter.
Yes, sir. ऐसा लग रहा है.
ऐसा तो लग तो रहा है. Okay. When the interpreter runs a script, it completely translates into bytecode. So when you take, there are two ways. You are in the interactive shell, the story is different. You are running a script, then the story is different. Python is an interpreted program for sure. Python is an interpreted program for sure. But didn't I show you two different ways to run the Python program, Python code? One was in the interactive shell, another was the entire script. Didn't I show you?
Yes,
हाँ
sir.
ना कुछ तो बोलो.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the interactive shell, we just type print, def, ऐसा type किया. And then we 3 plus 5, where is equal to 3 plus 5, and then we said where की value क्या है, we got answer as 7 and so on. There we are writing few lines of code. But then when I say Python 3 while guess game.py, there is around 20 odd lines of code that has been interpreted. But what we learned earlier is interpreter works on principle of edit, compile, run cycle. That means it will take one line, interpret, translate that line, execute that line, and then go to the next line.
Sir, you are not audible.
Sir is having some network issue.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have connected over mobile since my network service, internet service provider has run out of backup. So it looks like there was the power shortage for a very long time. So let's continue with the discussion. If you can see the screen, if my voice does not break, we'll continue the session. If there is a disturbance, please let me know. So I'm sharing the screen. Here the Python has got installed. I said disable path. Python was set up completely, so Python is now ready. Okay, here I'm not aware, but we'll continue. Is the screen
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
okay?
Voice is breaking.
Pardon?
Voice is breaking.
Voice is breaking. Okay, let's try even then. If it still breaks, let me know. We discussed this particular point. Okay. I'll just give a demonstration of this in the Python. So I'll not touch upon that important point, but let me now start with Python shell. Last time we could not run Python program in Windows. Linux we could run, in Windows we could not. Now that I have installed Python, probably we could run it under Python Windows as well. Let's see. So I say cd Python. Oh, how do you spell Python? cd Python. cd यहाँ नहीं है. cd backslash cd Python cd programs. Okay, let's start. So now in Windows, if I have to start with Python, let me know if the voice is correct. Huh? So I say Python and it hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay, so if I say Python, it should really start. So I have typed Python, but nothing really happened. Huh? Python. Okay, let's see what is happening. It's going over here and asking us to get Python. That was happening even earlier. That was even happening earlier. So something else must have happened. Let's see. The interactive shell has got installed Python. Was my Python installation correct? So I say Python over here. Oh, Python 3.11 has now got installed. So I go here and I say open. So Python 3.11 has now got installed. Here we go. 3.11.3 has got installed. And here we go. So we have started with this Python. Now that we have Python here, same thing. Colors may be slightly different, but otherwise it's exactly the same. So I say over here, print. Hello, it says hello. If I say 5 plus 6, it says there. It's working right. But this is the shell prompt where we are executing one statement at one place. Be installed, and if I'm trying to start Python over here by typing only Python, and if am I audible?
Yes, sir.
If it's not starting, that means probably we have not set the path. So let's see where is Python installed in the machine. So let's check where is this python.exe got installed. I'll just check first where it is installed. See the path. We'll say python.exe. Let's see where is it been installed in the machine. So this python.exe has got installed at some place. तो देखते हैं ये Windows apps में है. Then we have Python program, boot environment, display app data Python 3.11. यहाँ है installed. Okay, users app data local programs Python 3.11. That's the place where this Python has got installed. This is the location. This is the location where it has got installed.
Sir, how are we checking this? Like where it is installed?
Okay, that answer later. But
Okay.
मेरे पास एक utility है called as everything. Everything नाम की utility है. It's not.
Okay.
I installed it, but that's not a standard way to do it. Okay, here यहाँ Python आपका installed है. Here in Python you will find a lot of folders. यहाँ एक python.exe फाइल है, यहाँ lib है, फिर यहाँ doc है, okay, HTML documentations है, everything is there. So the Python that we have currently installed, everything is available over. देखो आज का what's the date today? 18.
18.
Can you see this 18 अभी install हुआ है 2106 अभी 6 मिनट पहले 6 मिनट पहले. Can you see that date and time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the Python which has now got installed. और यहाँ आपका exe file है Python. This is the exe file that is available. So we could probably run this particular file and start Python. ये आपका ऐसा start कर सकते हैं. So what we need to do is we need to set the path. ये मैंने select कर लिया path and I go to something called as environment variables. I go to environment variables. Watch it. Here I go to environment variables. Below I'll have a variable called as path. इस path में देखते हैं Python path है क्या कहीं? So there was no path for Python that was given. So I say new and I add that path. Now since I added that path, इतना ही change किया मैंने. I start with the shell once again. अब देखते हैं Windows में start हो रहा है क्या Python. Let me start with regular command prompt in Windows. Here we could not start Python earlier. अब देखते हैं if I say Python, Python has started. See the difference now, everybody.
Yes, sir.
I'll just remove it from the. यहाँ से मैं निकाल देता हूँ इसे फिर देखते हैं दोबारा. We go to this path variable. I go to this path variable. यहाँ से path हटा देते हैं for a moment, just for you to understand. हटा दिया मैंने path. Okay, okay, okay. और ये command prompt दोबारा start कर देते हैं. Let's start the command prompt once again. Command prompt and let's start Python. It is failed to start. ये start नहीं हो रहा है. It's searching, it's not finding. Correct? And probably it will ask you to install Python, get Python, or कुछ तो कहेगा, but it's not starting. So what do you need to do? Go to environment variables. I'll take you again over here. Edit the system environment variables. Go to environment variables. Type the path where Python has been stored. ये python.exe file जिस किसी path पे रहेगा वो path copy कर लो. Go to this path variable over here. Say new. Add a new path. That's the location where Python is installed. इसे apply करके close करो. Now start with your command prompt. Here we are. And type Python. Have you started? Have you understood everybody how to do it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. अब मैं इसमें से exit करते हुए बाहर आ जाता हूँ. And I have my Python script stored somewhere. Watch it very carefully. I'm going to show you something very important. I go to CD Python. CD. I have something called as programs. Here I am. And we are going to talking about that game. So I want to run that game in Windows. So I say Python while game guess complex.py. Now this time around, somebody else is going to take a chance. Let's say who will take a chance. Ashfaq, आप बताइए guess करके.
Yes,
चलो
sir.
जल्दी. What's the number? Guess the number.
10.
जल्दी बोलो.
22. 35. 35. 47. 52.
You are a loser. नहीं हो गया आपसे. Okay. Anyway, that was not very important. Important कुछ और था. I ran this Python script program. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the answer. Okay? If I show you the contents of this particular script, it's a script now. So I'll say while ये आपका Python का script है. We'll learn how to write such script. ये आपका Python का script है. Now what would interpreter do? Interpreter एक line को interpret करेगा, execute करेगा, एक line को interpret करेगा, execute करेगा. That's nonsense when we talk about executing a Python script. See what has happened in this particular folder called as programs. Watch it very carefully. In this folder called as program, there is one folder that has got created called as हाँ create हुआ है देखते हैं. यानी Python कहाँ था? Was at this location. Do I see a folder called as PyCache? Let me search. There is a folder called as PyCache. A folder created. There is one folder called as __ PyCache that has got created. और यहाँ अगर आप files देखोगे, there are a lot of files which are there. Okay, these are all compiled versions files. ये देखो यहाँ लिखा है compiled Python files and so on. तो काफी सारे files है. But I am really not interested in this one. I am interested in my file, मेरा वाला program. तो जो सबसे latest रहेगा, date modified, latest. Let's do it once again. We are here. And these are various folders which are there right now. And I'm in this current location where I installed Python. And I'm going to run a program. I got it right. So I guessed on the last chance I guessed it right, 85. So there is some logic that we could use to guess that number, but that's not what I want to show you. I want to show you something different. Okay. Why complex? Why Let me search for this file. It's just like where it is being kept. Let me just edit it for a moment inside this. Let me make some small changes. This is दोबारा run कर लेते हैं as a script. दोबारा run कर दिया. It says the number is greater than 55. Number is greater than 77. Number is smaller than this. Number is smaller than 88. Now I'm stuck. Let me say 83. Loser left. Okay. But let's see what has happened over. We will have a folder over here. Okay, I just check something weird is happening. Okay, let me explain you what possibly actually what should have happened. When you run a Python program as a script, this script that we are running, it actually compiles the entire code. It actually compiles the entire code and creates an equivalent compiled version of the Python. So like what we saw here, there are a lot of compiled codes for Pythons which are there. Like I just showed you, Dunder UI cache. Such is the folder that gets created. Inside this, you'll find all the compiled version of Python which are present. And if you try and open up this particular file, you'll understand the instructions over here are actually not present in Python language, They're in totally different instruction format which is there. So if you go to this instruction, this is the bytecode actually. So I wanted to show you the bytecode, nothing else. So I just say CD and I jump to that particular location. And if I say dir, where are all these files? So if I type any of these files, say suppose struct or selector something or py, oh, this is the bytecode that is there for that program, selector.c python.pyc. So when you take a program and when you compile that particular code, that means the code is actually going to get compiled when you are running the code. What it will create is a .pyc file. What we create is a .pyc file. That's a compiled version of the Python file. And this is the program that actually gets executed and not the code that you have written. So this is a compiled version of the file. And these are the bytecodes. Probably abhi hum log samajh nahi pa rahe. I'll tell you how to read this file also. This is not the readable format. This is the bytecodes. So what exactly is the bytecode is what we really need to understand. So let's go to our notes once again to understand what exactly is this bytecode. Here we go. So when you run a program, what you get is a low-level language called as bytecode. We could not read that particular bytecode as of now. When the interpreter runs a script, it is completely translated into bytecode. And that is what I was doing. When I'm running that particular script, it will get completely translated into a bytecode. So we should have a .pyc file. So what happens is you have a Python code that goes to something called as a syntax checker and a translator. If there is an error, it will generate an error message. If there is no error, it will create a bytecode. That bytecode will not go, as Kaustubh said, to your Windows operating system, or it will not go to your hardware. It will go to something called as Python virtual machine. And it is the Python virtual machine in which the program will run, not on your Windows, not on your hardware, rather in this virtual machine called as PBM that the program runs. So the bytecode is next sent to another software component called as Python virtual machine. So you write a Python source code and then you're trying to run that particular code, it goes to something called a syntax checker and a translator. This entire thing is within the interpreter. That translator, like a compiler, translate the code into bytecode. Bytecode is a format of instruction that your target machine will understand. Now, what's your target machine? Your target machine is not the Windows machine, not the Linux machine, not the Mac machine in terms of OS. Neither in terms of hardware, it's not an Intel machine, it's not a Motorola machine, it's the Python virtual machine which is there. So every Python program that you run is not running on Windows or Linux or Mac. It is running on something called as Python virtual machine, which gets installed when you install Python. And it is this Python virtual machine that is executing that particular code for us. So what is happening? You have your hardware. Hardware is managed by OS. On top of the OS, you have this interpreter. Okay, and this interpreter internally contains all those compilers and everything. So this is just a brief. I'll come to details as we go ahead. And detail bhi aayega. So your Python programs are not running on an OS, neither they are running on hardware. They are running on this Python, inside this Python interpreter, which contains this something called as PVM. This is not the entire story. I'm going to break open this PVM also and tell you what is there. It's going to work on this PVM. Think about PVM as a virtual machine. It is a machine. Virtual machine means it will behave as if I'm the actual machine, while it is actually not the machine, but it will behave as if I'm the actual machine. That means it will emulate the working of the actual machine. So the way actual machine works, it will say, okay, I am the actual machine and the program is going to run on that machine. Okay, you may be finding it slightly complex, but just try and understand. It's a emulator. It's like a model of the actual virtual machine. Means in your regular machine, you have a RAM, you have processor, correct? Processor executes the instructions which are there in your program. RAM stores the data and so on. So PVM will have all those things inside it. So your program is running inside the PVM, not on the actual device. So PVM is a virtual machine. It's most of the time a software, which behaves as if I'm the actual machine, which behaves as if I'm the hardware. So like you run your games on your machine, the Python programs are going to run inside that PVM. And PVM will generate the output to you. And when it has to interface with the hardware, it will make the request to the OS and the OS will display that output for us onto the hardware. So when you take a Python script and we run the Python script, what is happening over here, that Python script is translated into your, what do you say? Python script is translated into a bytecode. Bytecode is a format of instruction that is target machine understand. And the target machine is not your Windows and Linux machine. The target machine is PVM. So it has to be understood by the PVM. So if somebody has to define what is PVM, we'll have to say, what is bytecode, you'll have to say bytecode is a format of instruction that the PVM will understand. Not the actual hardware, but the PVM will understand. For a moment, I'm just giving you an overall idea. Details, I'll discuss in the next session, how actually the Python program runs. But this is an overall idea. Normally, we see a C++ program, they run on your actual machine. Python program do not run on actual machine. They run on something called as, you must have in Java, you must have heard called as JVM. So in Python, they have PVM, Python virtual machine. It forms an interface. So what is happening, I'll tell you. When somebody asks you, how is Python program portable? How come Kaustubh ne Windows pe likha hua Python program runs on Monica's machine, which is Linux, and Harsh machine, which is Mac, and Ashfaq's machine, which is Solaris? How does it run? Because it was not running on Windows, Mac, or Solaris. It was running on PVM. So Ashfaq needs to have PVM running on Solaris. Harsh needs to have PVM, which is running on Mac, and Monica needs to have PVM, which is running on Windows. So you may say, so then how do I get these different PVMs? Okay, I'll show you how do you get those different PVMs. When you visit this site, even to download Python, install Python, suppose we have to download Python. And it then asks you, download Python. If I download Python for Windows. But note here, Linux, Unix, Macs, other, सारे दिए गए हैं. So अगर मैं कहता हूँ, oh no, I want for Unix and Linux. So these are the versions for Unix and Linux which are available. I could download it. I said no. मुझे ना Linux, Unix नहीं चाहिए था. Other operating system चाहिए थे. So you have for AIX, for IBM machines, for iOS, for iOS, for OS 390, अरे सारे दिए गए हैं हमारे पास. So for every kind of machine, हर्ष के पास Mac है तो he'll go to Mac OS, he'll take this. So when you install the Python for your OS, that means you're going to have the PVM for your OS. That means the PVM that will run on your OS. So if the PVM is there on your machine, then when you try and run the Python program, you just have to tell the client, you install Python and keep ready. So when you take the Python code and we try and run on his program, on his machine, the program is not running actually on his machine, is running on the PVM which is running on his machine. So PVM provides a layer of interface between the hardware and the Python program. And it looks like for you as if the Python programs are portable. Programs are portable. Python itself is not portable. The Windows Python that I installed right now, if I give it to you and I say, okay, use the same thing to run on your machine, that will not happen. Because Python for Windows is different, Python for Linux is different, Python for Mac is different, Python for Solaris is different, Python for all other operating systems we saw is different. But the PVM's behavior and working is same for all OS. So when you run the program, actually the program is running on the PVM and not on the actual machine or actual OS is running on the PVM. And that's the reason Python programs becomes portable. Have you understood this? If there is any query, please ask. I'll just go deep into it sometimes later, but this was an overall idea as to how Python program works.
Sir, Shantanu here.
Boliye.
Sir, while running, while executing the script, it converts to bytecode, and this bytecode is run on PVM.
Yes.
Right. So, while running on PVM, does PVM consume the resources?
Okay, good question. You want the complete answer? Yeah, answer that you can digest.
Sir, both the ways.
Okay, I'll give you the complete answer first. Okay. PVM is a model of the actual machine. So it should have its own resources. Correct?
Yes.
So you can create a hardware PVM also. Just like your laptop. I have a Dell, some precision machine. So I can get it from the market a PVM directly, a silicon chip, a processor, a Python machine. And then run a program on that Python machine. That's one possibility. That's a hardware PVM. Understood?
Like the Arduino that we use, or the
Yeah, but that on that again we install Arduino will have some OS that will install, maybe lightweight OS, and on that again we'll have Python running. So there is some lightweight Python which is running inside PVM that is running. I'm saying if PVM is a
machine. Mhm.
so if you are electronic engineer, you can actually create a hardware PVM. Like I have a laptop which is a hardware right now, correct with me?
Yes.
So you can create your PVM as per the specification and then take any Python program and run on that PVM. It will run. So it will have its own physical RAM. It will have its own physical processor. It will have everything. But that processor will only understand the bytecodes and not the instructions that your actual OS understands. Actual processor understands.
So here PVM works like a VM. Just
Right now on our machine, I'm not having hardware PVM. I'm having a software PVM. So that software behaves as if I'm the actual machine. So it has a logical processor, it has a logical RAM, it is all logical. That means it is consuming the resources of my laptop. So it's a program running on my laptop, using the resources of my laptop, but containing the Python program within itself, saying that I am the machine. Or to put in different words, Python instructions will be executed by PVM, and the PVM's working will be executed on my machine, on my software machine, my real laptop if I have.
okay. Okay.
So
So
yeah.
basically, while PVM is running in the background, if we see our system manager or the resources used,
Correct.
it will
Correct.
show the actual resources used by my laptops.
It will show you the actual resources used by PVM
Okay.
of your laptop.
Okay.
Correct. But if you do not want to have a laptop and still run a Python program, that's also possible. You don't have a computer and you want to run a Python program, that's possible by getting a hardware PVM.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Any other question? Anybody? And I'll tell you which market में क्या मांगोगे आप अगर hardware PVM लेना है तो. Sunita, Ashfaq,
Yes, sir.
confusion है? Don't
No,
worry.
sir.
अगर थोड़ा बहुत समझ में आ गया तो भी ठीक है. Because I'm going to go into the details about this later. पहला एक
Sir, is PVM is available in market?
hardware या software?
Hardware,
Yeah,
sir.
it's available.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you the commercial names also. So don't worry. It's available.
सर पण ते प्रत्येक ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम साठी वेगवेगळं अवेलेबल असेल ना
नाही ना, तिथं
मार्केटमध्ये पण?
OSच नाही ना, असं काय करताय तिथं लॅपटॉप आहे.
अरे हा हा
OS कशाला लागते आपल्याला? वी नीड OS टू कंट्रोल योर हार्डवेयर.
येस
अगर पीवी मशीन है तो उसका खुद का OS रहेगा विच विल कंट्रोल दैट इट्स ओन हार्डवेयर.
ओके
एक्चुअली आई कैन टेल यू मोर डिटेल बट दैट विल बी स्लाइटली कंफ्यूजिंग. जिनको थोड़ा बहुत कंप्यूटर का बैकग्राउंड है, आई जस्ट टेल यू जितना समझ में आए. एवरी प्रोसेसर हैज इट्स ओन इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट. पृथ्वी आपको हार्डवेयर में A+ मिला है ना. एवरी प्रोसेसर हैज इट्स ओन इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट्स.
Yes, sir.
So it knows what operations can it do and what it cannot do. So PVM also has its own instruction sets. And a PVM has its own set of commands. So when we say bytecode, those are instructions, or bytecodes are nothing but instruction set of your PVM. So समझ में आ रहा है? It is instruction that the PVM will understand. So you write Python
Sir,
code in
1
English.
second.
Pardon?
1 second, sir.
You write Python code in English using Python as a language. That PVM doesn't understand. PVM has its own set of commands. We call it as instruction set of PVM. So our interpreter is translating the Python program into the instruction set of your PVM. That means into a format that the PVM will understand. So the target device for a Python program to run is not your laptop or my laptop, or not your desktop or my desktop. It is the PVM. So since Python programs are going to run on PVM, we need to talk to PVM in the language that the PVM understands. समझो अशफाक को हिंदी समझ में आती है सिर्फ, and I start speaking to him in Marathi. Will it make sense?
No, sir.
No. So Harsh is between a translator. So I speak in Marathi. Harsh is an interpreter who translates Marathi into Hindi, and then that is given to Ashfaq, and Ashfaq can interpret it now. He can carry out operation according to it. So if I say
Yes.
Ashfaq has his own instruction set, that means Ashfaq को हिंदी आता है, तो हिंदी के जो words है, जो शब्द है, that is his vocabulary. These are the commands that he understands. So PVM has his own instruction sets. Since PVM has his own instruction set, every Python command that we give needs to be translated into a format that the target hardware will understand, or target machine will understand. And the target machine is PVM. तो PVM के जो कमांड सेट है उसमें वो ट्रांसलेट होना चाहिए. And that is the work of interpreter. So it is translating the code, Python program, into bytecodes. Bytecode is a format of instruction that your PVM will understand. Let me define it. Bytecode is a format of instruction that your PVM will understand. So your code, since it is going to be executed by PVM, it should be understood by PVM. So your interpreter will translate that bytecode into Python code into bytecode, and bytecode is nothing but instruction set that your PVM will understand. Have you all got it? नहीं तो बताओ.
Yes, sir.
हाँ तो बताओ. कोई
Yes, sir.
दिक्कत नहीं है. It is the
Yes.
first time I know this. You will keep on searching for this, and very few books will talk about it. So confusion रहेगा इसमें. I know for sure, but I'm not going to leave you halfway through like this. I'm slowly going to go into deep detail in the second session and explain इसके अंदर क्या है. That also I'll explain you. But ये पहला ये तो हजम हो जाए कि प्रोग्राम हार्डवेयर पे रन नहीं कर रहा है, प्रोग्राम पीवीएम पे रन कर रहा है. मेरा लैपटॉप मेरा टारगेट डिवाइस नहीं है, मेरा पीवीएम मेरा टारगेट डिवाइस है. So for a Python program to run, it is necessary that my PVM should be ready. Without PVM, Python program will not run. इतना समझ आ रहा है? Everybody?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Without PVM, Python program will not run. Now, where do I get the PVM from? I get PVM from the market. I can go to python.org and get software PVM. And I don't have a laptop or a desktop and I still want to run a program. Then I get a hardware PVM and I run the Python programs on that. That's also possible. But one thing is necessary. You need to have PVM to run a Python program. In normal circumstances, you need to have PVM to run a Python program. Understood this, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There was some disturbance today in between because of the network issue. Okay, but then we'll meet tomorrow again and we'll continue with the alternate implementations of Python which are currently available in the market. यानी आपके पास कौन कौन से पाइथन अवेलेबल है मार्केट में, या मैं उसे कहूँ पाइथन के कौन कौन से फ्लेवर्स अवेलेबल है मार्केट में, एंड विच फ्लेवर विल वी बी यूजिंग. मोंट आई से दैट पीपल से अरे ये तो हमें पता है यार पाइथन 3.11.3 यूज कर रहे हैं. नहीं, दैट्स एक फ्लेवर के अलग अलग वर्जन. देयर आर मल्टीपल फ्लेवर्स ऑफ पाइथन विच आर देयर, एंड देन यू मे से सर पाइथन पढ़ा काफी है ना, व्हाई डू आई नीड टू नो द फ्लेवर्स. अरे because the scenario in which your application is running will be different, so unless you are not aware about the flavor, you will at times say नहीं ये possible नहीं है. But if you are aware of the flavor, then you have new possibilities. अब वो possibilities क्या है? For that we need to understand what are the various flavors of Python which are there, and that is our discussion for tomorrow's session. We meet tomorrow. Although I had planned Saturday, but we meet tomorrow and we'll discuss what are the various flavors of Python. So with that, we'll finish with the basic introduction. And again, later I'll come back to the details when in the course as to how exactly the Python program runs. If PVM के अंदर क्या है, वो भी मैं discuss करूँगा बाद में. But फिलहाल, what is PVM is something that you should really understand. So Python programs do not run on the hardware; they run in PVM. The PVM can be software, it can be hardware, it can be anything. And if it's a software, that means it's a program which is behaving as if I am the hardware. ऐसा program लिखा है हमने vendor में. So you can get hardware PVM from the market, software PVM from python.org. And you can, unless the PVM is there, your Python programs normally will not work. Everybody understood this?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
And
Yes,
although
sir.
we say Python programs are interpreted, if it's a script, the entire Python code will get translated into .pyc file. And that's nothing but bytecodes. And that bytecode file will run. So there is a sequence as to how does it search program run करने के लिए, and then it runs that program. I'll be teaching you those concepts in quite a detail when we discuss packages and modules. So with that note, we'll stop here today. But before we stop, I just want to have a quick feedback from all of you, each one of you. What was your learning? We'll start with Ashfaq. What was your learning, Ashfaq, today? क्या आपने नया सीखा आज?
सर मतलब पाइथन हम किसी भी मतलब इसमें रन कर सकते हैं, या विंडोज हो, लिनक्स हो, लेकिन सबके अलग अलग वर्जन मतलब अपना अपना ये होता है सर. मतलब अगर विंडोज पे रन करना तो हमें विंडोज का लेना पड़ेगा पाइथन. तो वो
यानी
है.
मैं आपको
दूसरा
अगर
सर
एक
पाइथन
प्रोग्राम
रन
दूं,
करने के लिए
मैंने अगर पाइथन
ओके
कोड लिखा है मेरी मशीन पे और
यस
मेरा
सर.
मशीन लिनक्स है, तो क्या आपकी मशीन पे वो रन
ओके
करेगा प्रोग्राम?
यस सर, रन करें
रन
पाइथन,
करेगा.
क्योंकि अपने पाइथन किसी मशीन पे.
Okay, let me add to what you have said. Just कि आपका सबका डाउट और अच्छी तरह से समझ गया.
यस सर.
पाइथन प्रोग्राम्स आर पोर्टेबल, यानी जो हम और आप जो पाइथन का कोड लिखेंगे वो पोर्टेबल है, किसी भी मशीन पे रन करेगा. पीवीएम इज नॉट पोर्टेबल. कैन एनीबडी एक्सप्लेन मी इफ आई से पीवीएम इज नॉट पोर्टेबल, इसका मतलब क्या रहेगा?
मतलब सर पीवीएम वो स्पेसिफिक जो उसका रहेगा पाइथन के लिए ही वो यूज
ना ना
होगा.
ना, विंडोज का पीवीएम अलग है, लिनक्स का
मतलब
पीवीएम अलग है,
हाँ, अलग अलग
मैक का
पे.
पीवीएम
हाँ,
अलग है, बट पाइथन कोड जो हम लिखेंगे वो एक ही है.
वो सब पे रन हो जाएगा, सिर्फ
वो
पीवीएम हाँ के लिए
तो हर एक
अलग
अलग
अलग.
ओएस के लिए आपको अलग पीवीएम चाहिए, पाइथन नहीं चाहिए, अलग पीवीएम चाहिए.
ओके सर.
ओके, हर्ष.
Yes, sir.
क्या आपका लर्निंग क्या था?
So the programs of Python are short, but they sometimes take longer time than C++ program to run.
Not sometimes, almost always.
Yes, sir.
So when will you use Python and when will you not use Python?
I mean, sir, it depends, sir.
Sorry. चलो कब Python यूज नहीं करोगे?
सर अगर मतलब
हाँ,
कम टाइम में करना होगा तो.
यानी जब टाइम क्रिटिकल हो तो.
यस सर.
So basically अगर रियल टाइम है एप्लीकेशन,
रियल टाइम एप्लीकेशन है. रियल टाइम का मतलब क्या होता है? इमीडिएट रिस्पॉन्स चाहिए. रियल टाइम का मतलब है वी वांट इमीडिएट रिस्पॉन्स विदाउट एनी टाइम, विदाउट एनी लैग. अगर रियल टाइम एप्लीकेशन है देन पाइथन का इस्तेमाल करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे?
नहीं करेंगे.
Avoid
sir.
करेंगे. We'll avoid using Python. There are other better technologies that are available. But then when we means what is why do we use Python then? Why?
सर बिकॉज इसमें ऐसे फंक्शंस है जो C++ में नहीं है, जो आई मीन ये काम कम कर देते क्योंकि वो पहले से बने हुए हैं,
एफर्ट्स कम
तो
कर देते हैं, काम तो उतना ही
efforts
करेगा,
कम कर
एफर्ट्स
देते
कम कर देगा, बिकॉज सब कुछ रेडीमेड है, ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग इज रेडीमेड. दोस्तों
Sir, the most important learning is every Python file has a bytecode that is instruction set for Python virtual machine.
हाँ ये भूलो मत है, ये पीवीएम बाइट कोड जो है ना वो इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट फॉर दैट वर्चुअल मशीन है.
Yes.
यानी इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट मतलब द कमांड्स दैट द वर्चुअल मशीन अंडरस्टैंड. So your Python interpreter is translating your Python program into the command set of the virtual machine. Very good. Or anything else, Kostu, that you would like to share?
Sir, that speed, sir, executable speed. For Python, it is much more than.
तो ये अभी समझ आ रहा है स्पीड कम क्यों है? बिकॉज हम लोग लिख रहे हैं पाइथन प्रोग्राम, वो पहले ट्रांसलेट हो रहा है बाइट कोड में, बाइट कोड जाएगा इंटरप्रेटर के पास, इंटरप्रेटर जितना खुद कर पाएगा मींस पीवीएम के पास, पीवीएम जो खुद कर पाएगा वो करेगा, जो काम खुद नहीं कर पाएगा वो ओएस को रिक्वेस्ट करेगा. यानी कितने लेयर्स है बीच में?
Yes, sir, बराबर.
सी का प्रोग्राम रन करे दैट विल डायरेक्टली गो ऑन द हार्डवेयर एंड टू रन.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's like I talking to Ashfaq in Hindi directly, and I talking to Ashfaq via Kaustubh. Yani I'll speak in Marathi. Kaustubh will translate that Marathi into a format that Ashfaq will understand. Then Ashfaq will respond, and then it will come back to me. अरे वो तो टाइम जाएगा ना बीच में.
Yes, sir.
The interpreted
It
language
is
takes
the
more
time
time to
taken.
learn. It takes more time. Monica,
Sir, Python code will not run without PVM.
okay, it will not run without PVM.
And
Don't say it will never work without PVM. Normally it will not work without PVM because I have not told you alternates till now. So normally Python programs will not run without PVM. Okay, then
Python code is more shorter than C++.
yes, you have to put in less efforts.
And
कम code लिखना पड़ेगा.
yes, and brackets rather
No,
than brackets,
indentation. It's easy
yeah.
to write. It's clean code. ज़्यादा clutter नहीं होता है. कहाँ open किया, कहाँ close किया, याद रखना नहीं पड़ता है. It becomes easy. Piyusha,
Yes, sir. About the features of Python.
कौन सा फीचर आपको लगा कि यार ये मेरे लिए मुझे लगता है ज़्यादा important है, मुझे लग रहा है.
Easy to code.
Easy to code. Okay, that's the motivation for a lot of people to choose Python. Easy to code. But easy to code क्यों है? मैंने बताया क्यों है easy to code.
Because the number of lines which we code are compared to like
ये
lesser.
कैसे less हो
Like
जाते हैं वो भी बताया मैंने. Less कैसे होते हैं?
Variables are don't need to declare before.
Okay, you don't have to declare. We can directly use it. One. Then
the complex operation like we can use functions.
there are functions नहीं. There are ready-made data structures. जिसके लिए C++ में 150-200 लाइन कोड लिखना होगा वो रेडीमेड है, शेल्फ पे है, उठाओ और यूज करो और आगे बढ़ो.
So we can also use modules from other
we
Python
can
programs.
use modules from other program, but Python का inbuilt जो library है that's very vast. So you hardly ever have to write your own logic in implementing those data structures. Data structures are available on the shelf. उठाओ and just work on your business logic. Don't worry on that data structure. Focus only on your business logic, the problem that you are going to have. So that makes the Python code very small. Prithviraj?
Features of Python are like right now was explained, half of the things are available in the form of libraries, in the libraries. And also how the time difference for execution.
Okay, so Python is fast, isn't it?
And PVM.
Python is fast,
version.
isn't it?
No, Python is not faster.
But then I told it doesn't really matter if it's slow. How is
That's
that?
because the lag and the lag between the like C gets compiled and then we can directly run it on hardware, while Python will.
But I said the speed of Python, even if it's slow, that doesn't create any hindrance in most of the real-time application in the real world. Why?
It depends upon the surrounding environment and
There are so many peripherals which are there. प्रोग्राम भले ही बहुत ज्यादा फास्ट काम करे, हार्ड डिस्क काम करनी चाहिए फास्ट, प्रिंटर उतना फास्ट काम करना चाहिए, स्कैनर उतना फास्ट काम करना चाहिए. Do these peripheral devices, they have their own delay, correct? तो इवन अगर आपने प्रोग्राम बहुत फास्ट काम कर रहा है तो आपका प्रोग्राम आराम से परफॉर्म आएगा बीच में, जब तक वो स्कैन होके आ रहा है, जब तक वो प्रिंट हो रहा है. So there are other factors also which overall impact the total performance of your application.
Yes.
Okay. And then Sanjay,
Python is very slow and
very slow नहीं था, मैंने slower than C++ था, very slow नहीं था.
slow.
हाँ.
Python does not use in critical application like
नहीं,
real-time
नहीं.
application.
हाँ, we should avoid. कर सकते हैं आपको करना है तो, but we should avoid using it for real-time application. Okay. शंतनु,
Python
हाँ बोलो संजय.
Python program run on PVM.
Very good. Python program run on PVM. Don't say my program is running on a machine. It's not running on a machine. It's running in PVM. You want to add any more point?
No, sir.
Okay. Shantanu?
So my today's learning was like about the PVM. Basically, I had idea about the bytecode, but never had any any knowledge about this PVM. So this was new for me.
Okay. What did you understand of bytecode then today?
Sorry.
What did you understand about bytecode? क्या समझा आपने? Bytecode का मतलब क्या है? क्या समझा आपने?
So bytecode is like whatever the commands that we write in the scripts, those commands are translated in the set of instruction that PVM understands.
That's it. That's it. Don't add anything more. This is the simplest and the most straightforward definition for what is a bytecode. It is a format of instruction that your target machine can understand. Now, if your target machine is hardware, then hardware understandable format. If your target machine is bytecode, PVM, then PVM को समझने वाला. So it's a format of instruction that your target device can understand. So bytecode for Java will be different. Bytecode for PVM will be different. Means JVM will be different. Bytecode for my machine will be different. My laptop will, OS Windows will be different. So when somebody uses bytecode, somebody amongst you said it's like zeros and one, binary array. It is a format of instruction that your target device will understand. ये clear definition है. So PVM Python का bytecode है. That means format of instruction that PVM will understand. Java का bytecode है. Format of instruction that JVM will understand. C का bytecode कोई कहता है, oh, it's an instruction set that my target device, my hardware will understand, my OS will understand. Anything more, Shantanu, that you'd like to add?
So, sir, you are going to say the commercial names of the PVM. So
Yeah, कल वो flavors के साथ बताऊंगा मैं.
Okay.
उसी में आएगा. And who's remaining? Sunita?
So for me, everything was new. How to download the Python program.
कहाँ से download करोगे Python? Program नहीं, software.
Python.org.
Python.org से करोगे. And then you'll have all the flavors of Python, ना? Linux का Python, Windows का Python, Mac का Python सारे. Then
Yeah, so I'll choose as per my machine. Like
correct,
if I have Windows, so I'll choose for the Windows.
correct,
And the latest version, whatever is there, it gets downloaded.
correct.
Then extension file, and then I install it. And then you
Set the
put
path.
out the difference between the source code and bytecode,
Source code.
and what is the PVM. And PVM is not portable. It is different for different operating systems.
Perfect.
But code are portable, and like they can be port to any other machines. Like they
Any
are
other PVM?
okay. Any other PVM.
Not machine. Machine hardware पे नहीं.
Okay.
Any other PVM. Very good. So
Thank you, sir.
on that note, we'll stop over here today. Tomorrow we'll meet. I'll surprise you with the flavors of Python, and then I'll also tell you the significance as to why are we learning about those flavors. Because tomorrow I believe that many of you will write Python programs, so you should be solution providers. You should have options that you can suggest to your team. A lot of developers don't even know these options exist, and then they try and figure out कैसे ये possible कर सकते हैं, and they say ये possible नहीं होता है because they are not aware about the true power of Python. So tomorrow we learn about flavors of Python. So don't miss tomorrow's session. See you tomorrow. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.